Sunday mornings at 8.
The latest national news is just minutes away with ABC News updates at the top and bottom of every hour on 890 AM WLS. Jake Hartford on 890 AM WLS.
521. Awake with Jake. There is an election on Tuesday. No matter how you vote, be sure you vote. You know, a lot of people are getting killed fighting for our country over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I got to tell you, when I hear stories about how their vote may not count because the bureaucrats couldn't get the ballots to them. When was our primary? In February this year? I don't know why it took so long to get the ballots together. But I got to tell you, if their ballots aren't counted, that is a crime with a capital C. So we have men and women who are giving their lives fighting for our country. So if they want to vote, and you're right here, where it's easy for you to vote, the least you can do is vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for, just as long as you vote. Now, I promised I would tell the story today about the first dude is coming to town. And if you saw the Jon Stewart show the other day, he called President Obama dude, and the White House is okay with that. That's fine. They don't care. And my son told me about the show because he watched it, and he was an Obama person back 2 years ago. And people are looking at the polls for this Tuesday, and they talk about this big wave of Democrats who would be voted out of office, and it's like they can't believe it. And I saw the first seed of it, in my mind, was planted back in February of 2008 during the primary when Obama was running against Hillary. And he made the speech the night of the South Carolina primary about all the things he was going to do. He was going to get rid of the lobbyists and this, that, whatever. And then he went on, beat Hillary in the primaries, beat McCain in the general. And the day after he won, in November 2008, I was on the air at that station down the dial with Dick Kay, and I got to tell you, it was, people there were just excited. Things were going to change. He was a new type of politician. He's going to bring people together. He's not racial. He's not nothing. It's just, it was nirvana. That's what it was. And I was the one voice saying, I don't think so. He's not going to be able to do it. There's no way he's going to keep the lobbyists out of it, because you know what? When he said he was going to keep the lobbyists out of Washington, I didn't see any of the other people, be they Republicans, Democrats, whatever, saying that they weren't going to be involved with lobbyists. I didn't see anybody hear that. But the first thing he did in January when he took office, he signed this thing about lobbyists, and then he had to ask for waivers for his own administration because he was hiring lobbyists. And then they had the stimulus, and I remember talking about these people that were voting on it who didn't read it, and I was poo-pooed like, well, Jake, you can't expect them to read what they're voting on. And I'm like, yeah, they're spending almost $1 trillion. Why can't they read what they're voting on? How long would it take? And then there was this thing about how all this stuff, every bill that comes before the president's desk, they were going to put on the internet so the people, the American people can see it for 5 years, for 5 days. Well, that didn't work. That's not happening. And then he talked about the earmarks. Oh, we're not going to have earmarks. Those little things that the Congress attaches to a bill where they can do things, little pet projects in their own district. He wasn't going to have earmarks. Well, the first bill that came to him in February had over 8,000 earmarks on it. And he didn't get rid of them like he said he would. And I kept saying at the other place, I said, see, I told you. He's not different. And they would say, Jake, get out of here. You're not one of us. But I stayed, and I fought through it. And we went through the whole thing with the health care. And everybody talks about that Rick Santelli kind of started the Tea Party movement with his comment, and he kind of brought people together. But really got the Tea Party going was in the summer of '09 when people were talking about this whole health care thing, and members of Congress from Speaker Pelosi on down were demonizing the people that were going to these town hall meetings with their congressmen. They were bad people, the evil people. Those are the Republicans. And what they didn't get in Washington is that there were more than Republicans going to these things. There were Democrats. There were independents, libertarians. There were people of all political stripes, people that weren't even political. They were just worried about their future. And they were being demonized by people in their own government. And it was as if the people in Washington, from the president on down, had a tin ear. And they wouldn't listen because they knew better. Forget those people. Those are just the troublemakers. Those aren't the real people. Well, they were the real people, and they are the real people. And the real people are unhappy. 70% are against the health care, and you're starting to see the problems with it. The president was on this week talking about, 30 million people will have health insurance. Well, you know what? It's over 30 million people, and they're not going to get health insurance this year. They're not going to get it next year. They're not going to get it in 2012. They're not going to get it in 2013. If they get it at all, it's going to be 2014. So if the whole idea, the whole simple single premise of doing health care was to give people health care who did not have it, well, then it's a failure. And I don't care how much selling he says. If he was able to sell it, people would love it. Well, you know what? That's the idea of trying to sell crap on a stick. He thinks he can sell crap on a stick if you sell it the right way. How did that work with New Coke? Remember New Coke? They had this formula that was working, and they decided, we're going to change it because we know better. And the people didn't like it. But Coke was smart enough to realize, in spite of all their advertising, that, you know what? The people don't like it. We're going to get rid of the New Coke. And what did Coke do? They were smart enough to go back to the regular Coke, the original. The only trouble is in Washington, the president and the leaders there aren't smart enough to go back and change the health care and change some of the other stuff they're doing. So they're going to be surprised. They're still surprised. When they look at the polls, they go, how could people hate us? Well, you know what? Get rid of the tin air. Look what you're doing. And maybe people would vote your way again. But they're not going to. I don't think this Tuesday they're going to. I think you're going to see Harry Reid gone and a whole bunch of people gone. And 6 months ago, when the polls showed like there maybe be 35 House seats going to the Republicans from the Democrats and maybe 1 or 2 Senate seats, I remember them saying, well, you know what? People will forget by November because we'll be able to sell the health care and people will love us and all that stuff. But people will forget. Well, people aren't forgetting. And they're going to the polls on Tuesday, and boy, I can't wait to see the results. And I want to see the reaction of the people, the professionals in Washington, the politicians who said, this isn't going to happen. Well, it's happening. And it all started back in February 2008 when you make promises you can't keep because you're not a good leader. You're a seller, but you're not a leader. 5:29, back after this.
Awake with Jake Hartford, 890 AM, WLS.